Hey everybody, this is Thyworm and today I will be talking about the Lord of the Rings living card games and what I think it can learn from Slay the Spire. The Lord of the Rings the living card game is a game that I really enjoy. I've played it for around 24 hours, I own the Shire founder pack and I've been just in general enjoying this game quite a bit. It seems however that in terms of fun I am one of the few people that is currently still having a little bit of fun with this game. Because if you're looking at the Steam charts, you will see that roughly 15 people on average are playing this game. The game has an all-time peak of 417 players, and all in all, these numbers are pretty bad. Even though the developers did put out a new encounter roughly 3 days ago, you only saw the numbers go up slightly, from 15 to 50, which is, yes, granted a 330% increase, but still it's only 50 players on average. So in this video I wanted to look a little bit like how is this possible, what are the features that in my opinion could really make sure that there are more and more people playing this game, because I do believe that this game has a ton of potential. Whenever I play the game I'm really enjoying it. There's like great voice acting, it's super fun to build decks, the game is pretty balanced, the PvE content is just great. And all in all, this game could become, I think, a really good game. However, also in my opinion, it needs a few tweaks and maybe some additional gaming modes. So I will do some suggestions in this video and I will be mainly comparing it to a game I've also played quite a bit and enjoyed a lot, which is Slay the Spire. So let's look at the main reason why I think that currently people are not really engaged. And I don't want to be Captain Obvious here, but what is currently lacking is basically content. I have been playing this game for roughly 20 hours, and while I did have a lot of fun with the deck building and doing the quests, after some time, like if I have saved Bilbo, let's say 15 times from the orcs and all the spiders and all that crap, I'm kind of done. There's just not that many interesting things going on in the game currently, so there's no real incentive for players to return to the game and keep building decks because the content and the PvE is constantly the same. So I thought, let's look at another game that I really enjoy. It's also a PvE card game. It is Slay the Spire, and this game on average on a daily basis has around 10,000 people playing it. You could say it's not a totally fair comparison, but I think to some extent it really is. And there are definitely things that Slay the Spire does that Lord of the Rings living card game can learn from. And I'll go into a few of those things. But first let me talk about the main difference between the Lord of the Rings living card game and Slay the Spire. Because Slay the Spire is a randomly generated world with randomly generated cards and card decks. So every time you play this game, the game is basically completely different. You face different enemies, you get different cards, the worlds look different, the vendors have different stuff for you to buy. It's very well done and it always keeps the game fresh. This is obviously something that Lord of the Rings cannot do. However, I do feel that there are certain game modes or certain other features that the Lord of the Rings, the living card game, could implement in order to make the game more interesting over a longer period of time without dishing out, let's say, new content like encounters, which obviously require some development work and recording and stuff like that, which takes time. I think there will also be possibilities for game modes and other features that you can implement that you have to implement once and then afterwards they keep the game more refreshing and fun to play even if you've beat all the regular content. So one of the things that Slay the Spire has, which I think really creates like an interesting dynamic in the player community, are leaderboards. And these leaderboards serve multiple purposes in my opinion. First, it is like a competitive thing, which is to some extent always fun. I feel you can check the other leaderboards and also try to be just on top of the leaderboards. But secondly, in order to try and reach the top of the leaderboards, you are usually required to change your playstyle or change other things so you get more points. And in the Lord of the Rings living card game, what you could do here, for example, is make sure that you build a deck that can get you as many points on the leaderboard, which is encouraging you to experiment with all the cards and all the different combinations and all the heroes that this game has to offer, just in order to reach the top of the leaderboard. I think something like leaderboards or a competitive element without introducing PvP, I mean, please don't do that, right? Without introducing PvP, I still think you can get an element in here that creates some competition, and this will have people return, maybe dish out a few rewards for like the top 3 of the leaderboards or the top 10, or I think this could be a relatively easy addition to the game which keeps it fresh, which also doesn't cost a huge amount of development work. The second feature that the Slay the Spire game has are daily challenges. And daily challenges, they really fit in nicely with the whole randomly, procedurally generated world. But what they also offer is, for example, certain limitations for that day, which you have to face or suffer in order to complete the daily challenge. For example, you get less cards, or for example, you lose health every turn, or something like that. If Lord of the Rings, the living card game, could implement a challenge like this could also pique the interest of more players. Every day there's something new, even though it's basically the same game mode, but then with a small twist. Maybe Sauron gains 2 threat every turn, or maybe Sauron plays more resources or gets more cards, or maybe you only get 1 card. I don't know, something that makes the game a little bit more challenging, and when you complete it, maybe give the players like a bunch of valor, or I don't know, something, or maybe a place on the leaderboards, right? So you can compete once again with the other players and see who did best on the daily challenge. And last but not least, I got a little bit more creative and I thought of another sort of game mode. I might be lore breaking here a little bit, but what about, and just think of this for a little second, like a survival endless game mode within Lord of the Rings. I could see this setting being, for example, Osgiliath, where Faramir had to defend Osgiliath from like the endless wave of orcs that came in via the boats and this stuff. So imagine, for example, you as a player, maybe you have these heroes, you get a few minions, you get a few cards, and then it is basically endless waves of orcs. The sole purpose of this game mode would be just to, well, survive as long as you can, because we all know that Osgiliath will fall in the end. And in doing so, maybe present the player with a new card every turn. Maybe get some nice fate events in there to reduce threat. Just make it like challenging and maybe increase the difficulty wave by wave and just see how far people will get. Once again, compete on leaderboards so you can see that someone for whatever reason was able to survive 53 turns, right? Think of some inventive, nice threat events and then offer a game mode that has players return to this game every now and then, just to see if they can beat the game with like another additional wave. And if you randomize, for example, the cards that people can get by maybe offering them just like a pick 1 out of 3 cards choice every turn, then it keeps it fresh, because you never go in there with like a set deck, but always the deck is random. Every time that you have this new game mode, something fresh and something new will happen. While still playing PvE, you're still playing Lord of the Rings, the living card game, it should still be a ton of fun, but this would typically be a game mode that I would be interested in playing over and over again, just like I played the daily challenges in Slay the Spire over and over again. And I think game modes like these are sorely needed for this game. I'm not sure that if only by putting out new content this will be enough to keep the players engaged, and I'm also not totally sure about the business model. I just really hope that Fantasy Flight Interactive is currently making enough money with this game, because I think it would be super sad to see this game die just because no one is really playing it. I think it would be sad because I feel that this is a game that has been done really well. It is in early access, but for example the comments of the community are taken into account. You can really see that this game is developing rather quickly. New patches and updates are put out on a regular basis. The game is already a lot of fun to play. It has great voice acting, great storylines as well, and the PvE content in it is just amazing. There's, however, simply not enough of it. So my main fear is that this company is slowly going to run out of money, or at least this game is slowly turning into like a non-profitable game, which could mean that they stop the development altogether. And I think that would be a big shame, because this is such a good game. I've had such a good time with it as well, and I can really recommend it. Just get the Shire Founders Pack. For $8 you get a lot of bang for your money there. There's a ton of content that you can play, and you will be easily entertained for up to like 15 or 20 hours, which is pretty decent for $8. So guys, this was just a video with some suggestions for, I suppose, mainly the developers, but also for you. Let me know in the comments what you think. Subscribe to the channel for more of these kind of videos, and I will talk to you soon, guys. Bye bye.